Construction workers of Reddit, have you ever built secret rooms or any other strange compartments by request? Story 1. Yep, all the time. People that can afford it pay a lot for panic rooms and hidden armories, swinging bookcases, doors and wall paneling, you name it, people with that much money usually have something to protect. Story 2. Electrician here, have done a few. The coolest was a secret passageway and attached room in a very nice house. It was hidden by a movable bookshelf on both ends. The guy said he didn't have a specific reason for building it, he just always thought it would be cool to have a secret passageway in his house. The other one that stands out was an underground survival bunker accessed through a hidden door in the back of a garage. It had an additional exit by means of an underground tunnel that led almost 100 feet in the bordering forest. The strangest thing about it was that it was a survival bunker that he had us wire with outlets and lights. Despite there not being any type of a backup off-the-grid power, makes me think that he actually had an alternative purpose for the shelter. Story 3. Residential contractor here. A client once asked that I add a 4x6 room next to the master that would be just big enough to allow someone to calm down if they were being bad. Specs had no windows, brick walls, double thick door, etc. He gave off that creepy as vibe, but you know, money. Anyway, the job was going fine until we ran out of red bricks and started using those blue and yellow ones. He lost his, cancelled contract and never looked back. TLDR, my son's standards for Lego houses are so high that Jesus himself couldn't reach them. Edit MSSNGLTDRS. Story 4. Yes, we worked on what was supposedly going to be a hidden secret walk-in safe in the basement. This room was heavily reinforced. Normally, walls around doors are framed using. This door frame was solid reinforced concrete. The room was a square attached to the outside of the basement, so all 4 walls were concrete. We poured concrete above it, so the ceiling was concrete, very unusual. We also poured the floor, so it was 6 sides made of concrete. Since it was attached to the outside, there was no sign that it existed from the inside, no ventilation, no wiring from what I saw. I never saw the finished product, but the owner was keeping it a secret, and wouldn't explain much about it, so another contractor finished it off. Story 5. I used to do some construction work on schools during the summer. The principal wanted, in his closet, a door to slide up where he could keep a safe for special school records, and a mini fridge. Although it wasn't very big or that cool, it was the coolest work I ever was involved in that summer. Plus, who wouldn't want a mini fridge hidden in their wall? Story 6. My dad is a doctor, and does a lot of construction at home on his free time. This one time he was moving a wall, making one room smaller and another bigger. He was putting an entire wall bookshelf kind of thing in the smaller room, and just to with future homeowners he snatched one of those plastic skeletons from his job and hid it in the space between the bookshelf and the wall. I expect headlines sometime in the future. Story 7. Carpenter. I built a grow room for a guy's medical marijuana in Vermont. An alarm was wired directly to the state police barracks in the event of a burglary. Story 8. Never built one, but I did find one in a house I was doing some plumbing work in once. This was an expensive condo, and they had a secret office that had a secret one-way mirror looking into the guest shower. Creepy as man. Story 9. My parents' house has a secret room that's behind a bookshelf in their master bedroom. The reason is put quotations around secret is because this hidden room is wall-to-wall open window, so basically, you could hide from someone inside of the house, but if they happen to walk around outside, you appear to be in a normal room. Story 10. Friend of the family works as a custom cabinet maker. Most of his jobs involve him making secret compartments for rich clients. Mainly desks with a secret place that can hide guns, keys, ledgers and swords. Oddly enough, a lot of people request that, but also that stuff in bookshelves, picture frames, etc. He also gets your typical movable bookshelves. Story 11. Funny story. When I was a kid, my parents were designing their dream home. They asked me as a child of about 8 at the time, what I would want my room to be like. I didn't care about my room but pleaded for a secret room connected to my bedroom. To my amazement they agreed. Little did I know that they were about to ruin my dreams. The house was built, my bedroom and secret room was made. I was so excited to finally see it. They blindfolded me and led me into my room and asked me to try find the secret room. After much searching I finally found it. It was hidden behind a swinging bookcase and it blew my mind. I quickly went inside, only to see a full-size door at the far end of my little secret room. Upon opening it I was outside in the hallway next to my bedroom door. The parents, I swear I tried, but the amount of times visitors stumbled upon me in my secret room thinking it was a bathroom in the hallway or a bedroom, my childhood dreams were ruined. Let this be a lesson, parents of Reddit. You can ruin your child's dreams. They ended up using it to store spare mattresses. I built a Narnia closet for someone. Their daughter had one request for the new house. She had a built-in armoire, white and modern looking with nice shelving units on the right side and a bigger opening on the left. However, when you push the back of the left closet side, it opened up into an actual closet that was about 5 by 10 feet on the inside. Not too shabby at all. Was a pretty fun build, albeit somewhat challenging. Edit spelling words. Story 12. Kinda not secret. In my old flat, I had a room that was locked with a big Yale lock. Whenever we'd have people round, they would always want to know what was in there, but I never let on. It was my hobby room, so to speak. I used to fix up vintage guitar amps in there, and the lock was there simply as I couldn't trust my drunk friends to not go in there to mess with stuff. Amps have lethal voltages even when they haven't been used in a while, but I liked the mystique and intrigue whenever people were around. The women were the worst, and their hypotheses were always centered around a secret dodgy life. Story 13. I am not a construction worker. I attended a private boarding school when I was younger. The school itself was 200 years old, and the castle was built around was much older. Upon exploring, me and a few other friends found an entrance to a system of tunnels that ran beneath the school. The tunnels were used as maintenance tunnels for the old heating system that was once run from a gas boiler system. Originally we thought that was why they were built. We began trying to map out the tunnels, and used to spend hours underneath the school during study time night roaming around with a measuring tape drawing it to scale. We never completed the map due to the system's enormity. As we got further and further into the tunnels, we learnt that these were much older than just the gas boiler. A new, cement tunnel seemed to extend about a kilometer in radius. Past a kilometer the tunnels got older and more dangerous. We found that they extended all the way out to a pavilion in our school. These passages were also in cement but were very clearly much older. Most of my time as a 14-year-old were spent roaming around them. It gave us passages into locked rooms, the castle band grounds, to the forests, etc. We decorated a lot of the walls down there in shoe polish and stolen art paints. We would even smoke down there a mere few feet below the headmaster's office. Story 14 was a draftsman for a while. Two super wealthy Chinese parents were building all three of their children houses on their massive property. I was asked to design the ironing room for the eldest daughter. She genuinely liked doing ironing and laundry. I ended up designing this massive room with bay windows overlooking the lake with all sorts of storage compartments and a variety of ironing stations. She loved it. I got a healthy bonus, and am still confused to this day. Story 15. Not a construction worker, but in my old house one of the bedrooms had a small opening to the crawl space that was made to look like a large mouse hole. Hey, race a picture. Story 16. I worked for a very wealthy man, and he had hidden rooms and sliding bookcases, etc. When he would need comm equipment in these areas, we would gain access. Some also were built around wiring channels, and we would find them because the dimensions of the room didn't fit. We'd have to tell his assistant and let her know we knew, so she could let him know we knew and needed to get access. He had a hidden pistol range, a few safe rooms, and a pretty gun room tucked away into the three properties I had access to. All of the work was top-notch, and unless you knew they were there it was very difficult to find them. Story 17. Just moved into a house that was built in the 70s. The previous owners custom built it, and the architect was the man's old frat buddy. Custom stuff everywhere, trash chutes straight from the kitchen into the garage wheelie bin. When we first looked at the house, we really loved it, but there was no office space that my husband could use for his music stuff. It was the only disappointing thing about the house, but since everything else was so perfect, we went ahead and put in the offer. When we were doing another walkthrough with our parents, we showed them the walk-up attic, which is pretty cool too. When I turned around to leave, I noticed a wall of insulation that looked different. If you push the insulation to one side, a doorknob appears, and behind it is the secret office. Coolest house ever. Story 18. Not a construction worker, but I found a hidden room on my house. My childhood home was built sideways on a hill, with the garage lowered about 5 feet from the rest of the house on the downhill side. We had a huge living room that came right up against the edge of the garage, the wall of which formed a low 3-foot wall above which we had bay windows and a set of steps leading to a deck over the roof of the garage. When I was around 14 or so I was visiting a friend's house across the street and saw a picture of his grandparents on the wall. It was taken in their front yard within front of their mini gazebo facing up the street, and off to the side I could see my house, except not quite. There was no balcony deck, no huge windows overlooking the street from the living room, and a 2-car garage with a peaked roof abutting the living room, but we only had a 1-car garage. The other half of the garage had somehow disappeared into the rest of the house. I grabbed my friend and we ran back to TE house. Right next to the 1-car garage was a brick retaining wall faced by the stairs up to our front door. That brick wall was where the second garage had been, but clearly there was no room. It was only about 5 feet high, and the living room extended into that space. Still, we bet that it hadn't been filled in, and I vaguely remembered from years ago as a child that there was some sort of storage space into the garage. So we went exploring, and behind some shelves in the back, found a loose piece of plywood sitting in a groove. So we slid it sideways and saw that, yes, the concrete garage floor continued off into the darkness. So we grabbed some flashlights, squeezed in, and found a tiny little disappointing space containing a bunch of wiring panels, circuit breakers, pipes, boxes of junk parts and spare insulation rolls. It was as long as the other garage was wide, but only about 4 feet wide with a concrete wall on the side facing the front of the house, and short a bit less than 5 feet. The living room floor was clearly the roof of this cropped off part of the garage. Our initial hopes of turning it into a fort of some kind were hopeless. It was barely wide enough to sit side by side. We were about to leave, but panning my flashlight over the junk again, I spotted, at the far end of the wall, a door jamb. I scanned the flashlight up to the roof and saw that it led right up to the roof living room floor, where it had been roughly cut off, so we started moving boxes. Inside the door jamb was a plywood plug held in place by slide bolts. Now we knew we hit the gold mine. We shoved and stacked and pushed the boxes all of the way until we could get over and remove the plug. We pulled it out, pushed it to the side, and ducking down walked into a fully furnished room. Fully, that is, except 5 feet up from the floor where the walls had been chainsawed off and a roof floor put in. The remodeling had obviously been done over and around an existing room, There was spilled concrete at the edges of the carpet next to the concrete wall and some sawdust, but otherwise clean and neat. There were even electrical outlets on the 3 finished walls. I snuck out to my room and brought back a lamp. We plugged it into the interior wall near the door, and nothing. We then tried the interior wall facing the garage and success. The plug was a little wiggly though, and kept falling out, but the outlet in the far back the front of the house, behind what was now a brick retaining wall, worked perfectly. So now we had a room, secret just to ourselves still. It was a little weird that it was fully finished, but we eventually figured out that there had probably been 2 stages of remodeling. Someone had turned half the garage into a den first, then later someone had extended the living room over and through it. But with the lamp on, we realized that things were a little more complicated than that. A rough ladder of 2x4s led up to the ceiling in the corner, and what had looked like finished walls along the garage side were actually floor-to-ceiling cabinets built to fit the space, not chainsawed-off interior walls like the side wall. We found canned goods, an old electric heater, light bulbs which we later found fitted into 2 sockets, one at each end of the room but only one of which worked, an electric hot plate, toaster, utensils, old plates and cups, and most interesting to us, an assortment of liquor and old magazines. We paused our investigation for a bit after finding those. Everything down there was a good 20 years old or so, but we had only moved into the place when I was 6 or so we checked out the ladder. It led to a trapdoor of some kind, but we couldn't move it at all. Later I checked the living room and saw that at some point a new floor must have been put in over the top of it. So though someone at some point had used it as a lair, den, panic room, bomb shelter, who knows, all we know was that at some point, someone knowingly or not sealed off the living room entrance and left us a treasure trove. So we started using it as our secret fort. We snuck in some old beanbag chairs, the only thing we could squeeze behind the garage shelves, some sleeping bags, pillows, salvaged couch cushions, comics, and probably tons of other toys knickknacks I've forgotten. The secret lasted until the next school year. Though sworn to secrecy, my friend couldn't help but brag we had a secret fort, and one day brought over 2 other kids to show it too. I relented, because one of the kids was cool, and yeah, I job of wanted to show off. Neither of those 2 kids could keep a secret though, and one day when a group of kids were over, my mom came home early and heard a commotion of loud kids, coming not from upstairs at the other end of the house, but from below her feet. She found the place almost immediately but swore she'd known nothing about it. She kicked us out and closed it off, and told me it was off limits until she could talk to my dad about it. TLDR, when I was 14 I found a hidden partial room in my house and my dad let me use it as my private fort. When I was 16 I lost my virginity in it, and it was the first place I got drunk. Edit-o, the extra cool super secret part was that my dad is kind of a big guy so never really got all the way in to inspect it lol, and my mom never knew about the cabinets, cigars or liquor. Story 19. Wife and I had a secret, soundproof dungeon-type room built adjacent to our bedroom. The reason for the room is that we have various devices in there that are impractical to disassemble and put away when we have friends over or the day we have kids and still want to enjoy our fun discreetly. We had some devices installed when we built the room, such as a large metal cage and other restraining devices. The people who built the room probably asked us 100 times if we were sure we didn't plan to abduct people. The architect nearly dropped the project when I jokingly asked him to make sure there'd be an electric outlet to plug a chainsaw. Story 20. On the other end of things here, currently live in an ex-grow-up house, and am wondering what some signs of hidden rooms would be. The drug lord that lived here before was a shifty man, and there could be a hidden room in here somewhere. Story 21. I'm a pool builder, and we were asked to build a hidden pool room for the equipment and other random things. We had stonemasons turn the whole underneath of the house into a secret room and blend the door into the wall. To open the door you needed to push a stone and the door opened automatically. Story 22. I don't work in construction, but I've always loved building things, and when I was a junior in high school, I decided to remodel the basement that I was living in. I intended on building a secret room behind a bookcase, because I thought they were cool. It would have been the size of a small closet. However, I got more caught up with more of the actual building process. My basement flooded sometimes, so I tried to figure out a way to make it less of a problem. I decided to elevate the floor slightly, by laying a bunch of treated planks across to raise the floor an inch. That took more time than I thought, so by the time I got to my secret room, I blocked the area off, but never made the entrance. A few years later we got some professionals to redo the basement, and they told me that they were impressed by my solution for the floors, but didn't say a word when they noticed that I had blocked off an area that could have easily been used. Story 23. Not sure this counts. Anyways, I was interning with an advertising agency whilst at uni, and we went to an audio engineer's place. In his main room was a big piece of circular glass with a few dough lights on behind it. Against the wall was some wines he kept as the temperature was perfect. Turned out it was the end of a big tunnel that went far into the Adelaide Hills. As an underground into the hill was pretty mind-blowing, I thought. Story 24. I once built a whole level of a room that was half the size of the others. It was a half room. I don't know why they wanted a half room, but it was not accessible with stairs, and the only way to get there was by stopping the elevator. Story 25. In the 1970s, a group of Edinburgh students living in a flat in Nidri Street, in the city's old town, knocked on a wall and heard a hollow sound. Curious, and probably drunk, they knocked a hole through it, where they exposed an old labyrinth of corridors and rooms underneath North Bridge, nearly half a mile in length. People had lived and died in these rooms, underneath the city's bridge. there had been bars and brothels, and doss houses for the poor. People in the Victorian times had closed it off and subsequent generations had forgotten where the entrances were. Story 26. Some years back I lived in a pub in the UK. It had previously had a floor which was dedicated accommodation for staff, which was then condemned by the fire inspector. The owners sealed up the staircase doors to this floor. I cut a passage to it from my bedroom and had a hidden 4-bedroom condo in the West End of London for about a year. Then it went horribly wrong. Story 27. My husband's grandfather built a moving bookcase into his home in the daylight basement. The room was completely enclosed with no windows, being underground and about the size of a 2-car garage. Some framing suggests he intended to build rooms into it, but he passed away before the project was completed. Fully finished walls and lighting allow it to be used as an enormous storage area. Story 28. Under my childhood home there was a concrete room. You couldn't get to it from inside the house, and it was to get to, but I never told anyone it was there because I wanted it all to myself. My parents got divorced about 6 months after I found it, and my dad lost the house about a year after that, and it had since been demolished. I told my family about it a couple years ago, 20 years later, and nobody believes me. Now looking back and thinking about it, it would have made an awesome grow room. Story 29. I've always wanted a secret room that was accessible from underneath a wall next to a swimming pool. So you have your swimming pool, and on one side of it is seemingly a wall that goes right to the edge. If you dive in the pool, you can swim through a small hole that is near the bottom of the pool leading to the secret room. The secret room only has a very small bay of pool that you emerge from, and there are no other entrances or exits, nor windows. Story 30. I was a custom interior carpenter and I did two. One was a bookcase that opened up into a large storage area. The other was a hidden room behind their wine cellar. We installed a custom wine rack on a piano hinge, with a latch in the space behind one of the bottles. In the room, they installed a safe and a gun safe. All of the electronics for the house lived down there, as well as a panel that opened up into the main living room, in case you wanted to shoot an intruder from the safe room. Booze, guns, and safety all in one place. I guess what I'm saying is that I know where I'm going when the zombies come. Story 31. Electrician here. The customer wanted a sliding bookcase that hid 2 fire poles that slid down into the basement. Just like the old Batman TV show, he even had the bust on his desk that had a button under the flip-up head. The customer told me the bust was from the original show. The house also had a couple hidden doors and a panic room hidden behind a TARDIS. It really was bigger on the inside. Story 32. This will probably end up buried, but I doubt he'll be able to share this store somewhere else. I stumbled across one a couple years ago at my uncle's house. The house was huge. 6 en-suite bedrooms, luxury car, plenty of floor space, huge garden with custom ornaments and a swimming pool. Occasionally my uncle used to leave for a good few hours, leaving me with a house telling me not to make a mess. When he used to leave, I'd sometimes invite a girl around the house. One day this went horribly wrong. I invited her over, then quickly jumped in the shower. After my shower I went into this small closet to get my towel. It got caught on something as I was pulling it out and I heard a click sound come from my uncle's bedroom. Completely naked and curious, I decided to take a quick look to see if there was anything that happened. As I walked in, the floor mat had been moved. I caught a glimpse of a dip on the floor mat on the wall side too. I quickly wrapped the towel around me, pulled the mat up. Seeing a separation between 2 of the floorboards, I was freaking out at this point, not knowing if I wrecked part of the expensive floor. I decided to try push the floorboard back in place, but it wouldn't work, so I grabbed the bottom bit of the wall from the gap, and just as I squeezed a little bit, I heard another click. The wall, which was the gap between the en-suite bathroom and the bedroom door, completely slid up. It definitely wasn't conspicuous at all. Inside I found all of my uncle's old martial arts kit, a small shrine type of room with floor mats, and at the front center of the room was the most expensive looking swords I've seen. I stepped forward a little and the lights came on by themselves. The room was actually quite warm. I was literally surrounded by old expensive looking items. I heard the doorbell ring and my phone go off, so I started to leave the room. Just before I got wall that was open, it began to slide down. I was trapped for 2 hours in total. The girl came in. I was banging on the wall shouting her to come upstairs. She freaked out and called the police. My uncle came home, not even mad at me, telling me to just feel on the wall for a little indent. I found it, pressed it, then the wall raised again. I was naked. I must have left my towel somewhere in the room during the panic. Turns out that's his safe room for the artifacts he collects. Made sense as he became wealthy after selling antiques and going on trips across the world. Story 33. I used to work construction over the summers in high school, and within just a few miles of where I grew up there are 20,000 square foot homes. Anyways, this one client, who was pretty well known for being a CEO of a large corporation, requested a secret self-contained smoking room. Complete with secret entrance, a bathroom, cedar paneling, self-contained heat and AC, and an industrial-sized smoke eater, along with hideaway shelving that would store an endless amount of mason jars full of pot. Also has some crazy vaporizer as well. He would have meetings upstairs in his underwear and robe hole being high as FK. Story 34. Plenty of times. There was one I never saw the finished stages of that was basically an entire apartment accessible only by a small hatch in a closet. Either the homeowner was planning to harbor criminals, or a mistress, a man in an iron mask, or just really wanted to be able to get away from his family. Hope it wasn't like an H.H. Holmes thing. Did a lot of mansions, and this wasn't insanely common but far more than I expected. There was one builder that did a lot of these houses who managed to find a retired electric chair that he kept in a hidden room. He joked that when his kids were bad he would make them sit in it for few hours. It didn't have power running to it, but still. Story 35. Having an actual hidden room isn't the difficult part. It's dealing with the something isn't right about this house feeling that some people will get. Story 36. My house has 2 secret rooms, and here are the photos of it in construction almost finished. It is off of my movie room behind one of 2 black velvet curtains. The main secret room is huge, 20 foot by 9 foot, large enough for 5 or more people to escape tornadoes. Ceiling and walls are 18-inch thick concrete. The ceiling also has a steel roof with 10 inches of concrete poured atop it. All wired, vent and return, internet wired. Nothing wireless works in this room. We sometimes call it the black hole because the bars on your phone just disappear when you enter. The room is finished now and decorated like rest of house. It gives it less of a creepy vibe. Enjoy. Edit. The white stuff on some of the photos is lingering sheetrock dust from the construction. Sorry, that happens. Edit 2. I think I posted this in the wrong place, so I will put it on its own parent thread here. My fault. It's early and I am an idiot. Story 37. Well, this one time a laundry company in Albuquerque wanted me to put in a secret chamber below a piece of industrial equipment. For some reason they insisted it be completely impregnable against flies. Story 38. Part-time commercial construction worker here. Never built a secret room, but I always leave little mementos and messages written in Sharpie on the inside of drywall. It's a mini time capsule for the next builders who work on the building. I've been tempted to tack a joint to the inside wall. Story 39. A lot of people want to get married, have beautiful families, travel the world, help humanity, those sorts of things. I just want to have a custom secret room built into a home for myself one day. Then, I'll sit in the empty room in my lawn chair with a Coors Light, and announce I have arrived. Story 40. I have relatives that are particularly wealthy and they have a panic room. Given their home wasn't a custom home, they just modified an existing room. The room is a panic room with steel in the walls and a door that can withstand explosive charge according to them. The window outside of the room has steel bars surrounding it. What are they trying to protect? A safe that contains a few valuable comics and some guns. I'm really curious as to what comics are in there. Story 41. I want to tell my story, so I will. A house I lived in when I was younger had a secret little passage. My stepbrother jumped out from a mirror one day and I nearly soiled myself. Turns out the mirror swung open to a passage under some pipes and then into the electric or whatever cupboard in the hallway. You wouldn't know because of the pipes, but there surely was a way around and through. Weirdest part was that there was a gigantic blood stain on the floorboards, near the mirror. I told myself that someone waited behind the mirror and then jumped out and stabbed some unsuspecting soul. Story 42. When the local FBI office in the city I live in was being built, an owner change order came in to make all the finishes in these 2 rooms in the basement rated for pressure washing. These 2 rooms were immediately named the murder rooms by the construction workers. Story 43. During the finishing stages of doing a basement, the customer decided she wanted a wall with dead space behind it. Gave no reasoning, only details how big she wanted it. I had joked multiple times it would end up being a tiny grow room for marijuana. It ended up becoming a small grow room for marijuana. Story 44. The guy who renovated the last house I lived in put a load of secret rooms into it. It was a super old Sears model home from the 30s that had been added on to rearranged about 7 times in various fashions, and during his renovations he put 5 secret rooms in the attic where I lived. We were super good friends with him, so I knew of them. One I even used as a place to sleep because it had a window and good acoustics for music. I used a lot of the smaller ones to put clothes, random, etc., but nothing much. The new owner who made us leave the house was unstable and termite infested due to a body of water under most of the street, and he was going to renovate it. Said he found a whole bunch more from previous renovations. We also had lots of weird storage. Story 45. Engineer here. I've done some rooms behind bookshelves and secret doors under floorboard. They actually require some pretty unique solutions both engineering-wise and architecture-wise. Usually the client's reasoning is, because it would be awesome. Story 46. 1,600 comments in, likely buried, but at least I have a relevant story for once. Anyhow, I'm not a construction worker, though I helped my brother measure a wine cellar once. We had the planimetry of the whole thing, but couldn't find a particular area. Some kind of tight passage that went from one side of the winery to the other. We asked the owner what it was and he smiled, opened the door to one of the rooms where the wine was stored, removed the bottles from the shelf, which turned out to be a door. Inside the secret cellar, he kept his oldest and most precious wines, pretty sweet and impossible to find without the planimetry. Story 47. Had a request to build a hidden room which was to my belief be used as a dungeon. He requested low-hanging support beams, a sunken-in part for storage. We painted it in red and black colors. The floor was tiled in one portion for a drain. Story 48. Not built, but discovered when we bought our current house. We were shown around the 3 similarly sized square attic rooms. It was basically a square house. Dad pretty quickly figured there must be a 4th room somewhere. Eventually, we found we could see what looked like a plaster wall through the cupboard on our back staircase. It was above the master bedroom and seems to have been boarded up years ago. The plaster has the plaster's name and 17XX written into it. We cut through into it from one of the other attic rooms about 10 years ago now. It's only used for storage, so not that exciting. Story 49. Yeah, working on a big house that this eccentric couple owned, there was a secret underground Olympic swimming pool. We installed a pool table that came out of the ground floor, basically dug a big hole. Some other dude sorted all the pneumatics and electrics, Don't know what the table looked like at the end, but his swimming pool was dope. Story 50. I had a client once who wanted a safe room, full concrete, ballistic glass, rated to withstand explosions, reinforced doors, separate power and HVAC systems, dedicated phone and teledata as well with direct alarms to security and the police. The thing that was unusual was that they wanted it handled entirely separately. A different building permit, with a different crew, all work being done at night. If anyone was ever able to find blueprints or permits to plan a Hollywood-style caper, they wouldn't know about the safe room. This was a public building, not a private residence. Story 51. Not a secret room, but a friend of mine had a weird compartment in her house. In the middle of the dining room, there was a door that was about half the size of a normal door, maybe about 312 feet tall, same style as the rest of the doors in the house, in the same place halfway down as any other door. It led to a room, about 3 by 5, same height. It came wallpapered and carpeted similar to the rest of the house, but definitely intentionally decorated. My friend and her family never changed it. It was just this weird, half-sized room finished crawl space. Story 52. I remember my friend had a secret staircase in his house that was behind a large floor mirror. His dad was someone high up in Shell or BP or some another thing. In my grandparents' ancestral house in India, they seemingly lived in a large bungalow, but it turned out there was a secret staircase in a cupboard that led to the attic. There was basically nothing in the attic and it smelled like disgustingness, but 11-year-old me thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen.